And so when you come to religion, religion puts the fear of the policeman into people also, the cosmic policeman. The God sees everything that you're doing, and if you do wrong, then you're going to be punished. So I even had an acharya in the training center, an Indian Hindu acharya, who used to tell us brahmacharis that you must be good because Sri Ramakrishna is always watching you. He knows what you were thinking and he knows what you were doing. So you must be good. You must behave yourselves because Sri Ramakrishna is watching. I thought, my goodness, I didn't. They are the 5 Vaishnava bhavas: the Shanta bhava, the attitude of peaceful love; the Dasya bhava, the attitude of I'm the servant of God; the Sakya bhava, the attitude that God is my friend; the Vatsalya bhava, God is my child and I am the mother of God; and then the Madhura bhava, that I am the lover of God. God is my beloved. And so now this Swami is adding the policeman bhava. So again, that's the idea of religion for many people. But again, coming back to the question, is there a need for religion beyond that, just making people moral and making people good? First of all, let me say that if a person feels no need for religion, no need for spirituality, then that's okay, let them be. The problem is that many people who feel no need for religion and spirituality want to make others feel that they have no need for religion. I've heard once I was listening to a talk show on NPR on the radio. Often when I'm driving, that's the way I get news, is listening to NPR in the car. And so some woman had called into a talk show and says, I forget what the topic of discussion was, but she said, I wish people would just give up all of this religious nonsense. This is 2000 and whatever it was at that time, 2007. We know by now that there is no God, there is no religion. And so why don't people just give up this nonsense and forget about religion? So when that attitude becomes aggressive, that's the only problem. If someone feels that I have no need for spirituality, I would say, and most religious people would say, that they haven't yet awakened to the need. And if they haven't awakened to the need, then there's no sense in trying to make them feel a need that they don't feel. Let them be. But if they won't let us be, then that's the problem. So if people are good, if people are moral and they don't feel a need, okay, well and good. But there is something much higher than that. So now coming to the actual need for spirituality, which eventually everyone will feel from a Vedantic perspective. The Vedanta is what in Western religious terms is called a universalist religion. That is, it believes that everyone will attain to salvation, everyone will attain to enlightenment, everyone will attain to mukti, to moksha, to freedom, that no one will be left behind. Not even the demons, the asuras, the mythological asuras of Hinduism, even they will be saved. They will attain to liberation. That's one of the wonderful things in Indian mythology, is that even the asuras and rakshasas, the so-called demons, that they are people like us, only they are blinded by passion and ambition and pride and so forth. When Hanuman goes to Sri Lanka, when he first jumps over to Sri Lanka and he's walking at night or in the evening time, Sandhya, the time of the evening devotions, walking through the city of Sri Lanka, because at that time in the Ramayana, Sri Lanka is conceived of as a city, an island city. Walks through the city and he's amazed seeing the Rakshasas in their homes doing their devotions. Some are doing japa, others are offering worship, they're praying, they're chanting, and so forth. And he's amazed at the devotion, the devout nature of the Rakshasas. And so the idea is that everyone will be saved. But we have to awaken to the need for higher religion before it really is felt as a need. One of the problems that comes when a religion believes in only one birth, that this is our only birth. that we have no future birth, is that this is your only chance. If your eternal future is decided by this life, and you have no other life, you're not going to be reborn in another human body or other body at any time, but this is the only life you have, then there's a feeling that, we have to drive everybody into religion. And so that's what you find in places, in countries, or in communities where religion becomes oppressive, because they feel that it's our duty to make everybody religious and make them observe everything to the letter of the law. Why? Because we're doing them good. Because if they die without doing that, they're going to hell. And so we are saving them. So we have to make everybody be religious. We have to follow the law, the letter of the law, and so forth. If you believe in punarjanma, in rebirth, then you realize that there's time for everyone. There's time for everyone. And it does no good to anyone to force them into the doors of the church or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple. It does no good. That's why we don't go out into neighborhoods and knock on people's doors and say, have you found your savior in Sri Ramakrishna? No, we don't need to. If they hear about Sri Ramakrishna, and what we should do is to make the teachings available. That we try to do. We should make the teachings available. And if they find something of value in it, then good. Everyone is welcome. Everyone from every community is welcome. From every level of society is welcome. But you can't herd people into religion. That does people a lot of harm. And so the need for spirituality awakens when you find that all of this is not enough. So I'm a good person. So I don't go out and hurt people. I don't lie. I don't steal. I leave people alone, and basically friendly to people and nice and all of that. Good. That's very good. There's nothing wrong with being a good person. There's everything good about being a good person. But eventually we find that's not enough. That's not enough. So what? I still die. I still die. When the end comes, I die, and then what was the use of it all? What was the use of any of it? All of my laughter, all of my tears, all of my struggles, everything that I did, everything that I worked for, I die and everything is gone. So what? So what? What's the purpose of it all? If I die and it's all gone, there's absolutely no purpose to any of it. There's no purpose even now. The struggles you're going through now, the efforts you're doing to support your family is to be a good citizen, to do the right thing, to build up your life, to be responsible to those who are dependent on you and everything. There's no meaning to any of it when death comes, if that's all that there is to it. You die and everything is gone. Nothing is left. So what? So what? So what means nothing. There's nothing. It's only if there is something which endures, something which lasts. That's only then is there some meaning to all of our struggles. Otherwise, if everything is taken away, then what does it matter? I'll tell a little anecdote and then part of the explanation and then go from there. In, I think it was 1980, probably 1989. It was just before the breakup of the Soviet Union, when nobody knew that the Soviet Union was about to break up. I was living in San Diego at our Vedanta Society there. And the city of San Diego put on a wonderful program in conjunction with the Soviet Union. That is, it was the days of glasnost and perestroika, when Russia was opening up, the Soviet Union was opening up. It was a new hopes for friendship between the U.S. and the USSR and so forth, the time of Gorbachev. And so the city of San Diego, in conjunction with the USSR, put on the Soviet Festival in San Diego. And so a number of the best artists from the Soviet Union were invited to San Diego for either 2 or 3 weeks. I forget how long, but let's say 2 weeks. 2 weeks of celebration in which the best artists from the Soviet Union came. That is, the singing artists, musicians, dancers, folklorists, painters, all types of the arts came to San Diego and put on a grand program for a couple of weeks. And at the end of it, there was a interreligious prayer meeting, which I was asked to be the Hindu representative for. So it was a wonderful program that was put on. As part of that program, the Minister of Culture of the Soviet Union came to San Diego to stay during. Many officials came from the Soviet Union, not Gorbachev, but many other officials, including the Minister of Culture for the USSR, were in San Diego for the program. And this Minister of Culture stayed with a friend of mine, Father, now I'm not going to get his name anyway, Father Egan. Father Egan. He was a Catholic priest, a very important Catholic priest. And so the officials of the Soviet Union were housed in American families so that they could see how people live. So this Minister of Culture stayed with Father Egan. And one day he told Father Egan, he was a member of the Communist Party in the USSR. He had to be in order to be such a high official in one of the heads of one of the ministries. So he told Father Egan one day, you know, Father Egan, I will never again hire a person who doesn't have some religious faith, because without religion, there are no values. Without religion, there are no values. Now that seems to go directly against what Shobha said, the setup for what you said and what I was talking about, that there are people who are moral and so forth without being religious. The problem with that is that it has no foundation. Morality without a spiritual foundation, it has no foundation. All ethical and moral values are rooted in spiritual values. There are people who are moral, they're good, but it's a superficial goodness. I don't mean that they're not really good. I don't mean that they're in the dark, they're stealing and things like that. No, I don't mean that. I mean, they're good, but it's a superficial goodness. And usually it's because of inherited values that they grew up with, and those inherited values were based on social values, based on religious values that have been passed on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. What happened in the Soviet Union, and this our swami who was sent to Russia just after the collapse of the Soviet Union, he was sent around in 1991, maybe 1990, right at the time of the collapse. Swami Jyoti Rupananda, who's still there as head of the center in Moscow, he told me that the society had been devastated because of the attack on religion, the aggressive attack on religion in the Soviet Union, that the moral fiber of the people had practically been destroyed. And that's because, again, moral, ethical values have their root in spiritual values. And so, yes, people can sustain some morality for some time, but after generations, that begins to disappear. Why should I be good? Why should I be good? Swami Vivekananda addresses this question. Why should I be moral? If everything ends with death, and everyone is going to die, and death means nothing, you die and there's nothing else, then this life means nothing. This life means nothing. And so if I can get ahead by cheating, by lying, by stealing, everybody's going to die anyway. So just 5 minutes of life where people ha-ha, hoo-hoo, laugh and cry, and that's all that there is, then if I can get ahead and enjoy myself a little more by stealing, by lying, by cheating, then what's the harm? They're going to die anyway. Even if I killed somebody, when they die, they're nothing. And if I kill them right now, they're nothing. So what's the difference? When they die, there's no memory left. There's no person left. There's no memory. There's nothing left of the person. So if I kill them now, what's the difference? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And so in the absence of some religious belief, some spiritual belief, there's no foundation for morality. Swami Vivekananda, as I was saying, he addresses this in some of his talks, because in his time also there was the effort to promote a utilitarian view of morality. And the utilitarians, they didn't believe in God and religion. They wanted to do away with God and wanted to find a basis for morality outside of religion, because religion was more and more seen as just superstition. There's a bunch of stories, a bunch of mythology, a bunch of beliefs, because people didn't have the advantages of science. So they tried to explain things without science, and they invented a God who created things and who was guiding things. But there's no need for all of that nonsense. So the utilitarians tried to find a secular basis for morality. But Swamiji says there is no secular basis for morality. The utilitarians, they said that we should work for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Why? Why should I work for the greatest good for the greatest number of people? If there is no God, if there is no soul, why should I work for the greatest good of the greatest number of people? There's no reason whatsoever. The utilitarians just said, you should, because we should all want the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Who cares? Who cares for the greatest good for the greatest number of people? If I'm going to die, and I just have a few minutes to live, which is really, the older you get, the more you see that life is just for a few minutes. That's all it is. When you're young, it looks like you've got an eternity in front of you. When you get old, you see, my God, it's already gone. It's already gone. It just lasted for a few minutes. So if life only lasts for a few minutes, and I can have a little bit of enjoyment before I die by taking something from somebody else, stealing from somebody else, cheating somebody else, lying, why shouldn't I do it? You see, even in America, which compared to Europe, America is still a very religious country. Not a spiritual country. There are spiritual people, certainly, but it's not, as a whole, it's not a spiritual country, but America is a very religious country compared to Europe. In Europe, in some countries, like in Scandinavia, only 5% of the population believes in a God. Even in a country like England, only something like 30% of the people believe in God. That means 70% don't. So America is, by comparison, is a very religious country. But even here, look at the state of society, where now lying is free. Lying is free. If you shout long enough, you keep saying the same thing over and over again, then that makes it true. Truth is untethered to facts. Truth is untethered from what actually happens. That's an amazing thing. When I was a kid, it's a huge change from the time that I was. It's a change from 10 years ago. It's a huge change in society. But what happens when a society begins to become untethered from spirituality? Even just social religion is not enough. Just let me go to the church, let me go to the temple, let me bow down, let me give a little bit to the church may or may not use for a good purpose, but at least it makes me feel good that I gave a buck to something. And let me say my prayers just in case there is a God. And also it's a good place to meet people. Maybe business opportunities will come out of some of my contacts and so forth. So that's a social religion. That's not enough either. That's not enough either, because moral values are rooted in spiritual values. And if that tie is cut, yes, society continues for some time, maybe for a generation, maybe for 2 generations, maybe even 3 generations, just under momentum, because it was trained into society by religion earlier, and so it just continues. But after a while, that begins to wear out. It begins to wear out, and that we see all around us now, even in a country which is outwardly religious, like the U.S. Even a country like the U.S., which is outwardly religious, where a large majority of the people believe in God. The largest growing religion in America is spiritual but not religious. But even they have a belief in spirituality. But even in America, it's so easy now to lie, and nobody calls you on it, except for your political opponents. And that's partly because it's a political opportunity. Political opportunity which doesn't even work. It doesn't even work. So why should I not lie? Why should I not steal? Why should I not even kill somebody if I have the opportunity to get ahead by killing somebody? Why? Well, it hurts the other person. Well, the other person is going to die in 5 minutes anyway, from some other cause. And when they die, it always hurts to die. So if I kill them quickly, maybe I'm doing them good because they die like that instead of dying slowly in a cancer ward. So why shouldn't I do it? It's because if there is something permanent, if there is a reality, and speaking in Vedantic terms, if there is one reality which is the foundation of the whole universe, if everything is rooted in a spiritual identity, and that spiritual reality is eternal, beyond time, beyond space, and I am that, you are that, everything is a part of that, then by hurting you, I'm hurting myself. By hurting you, I'm hurting myself. By doing something bad to you, I'm doing something bad to you, to myself. And I can feel that if I become a little bit sensitive. This is experiential. This isn't theology. It's not theoretical. It's experiential. With a little bit of clarity of mind, if the heart becomes even just a basic purity of heart, we're not talking about becoming a saint or anything like that, where no bad thoughts ever arise in the mind, but if the mind and heart become a little bit pure, then you begin to see that when I hurt another person, that destroys the clarity of my own mind, the purity of my own heart. If I lie, it clouds my own mind. And I become fearful. What if somebody catches me in the lie? And then I have to tell another lie to cover for that lie, and then another lie to cover for those two, and it goes on, and the mind becomes more and more cloudy. If I want to live in a state of peace, if I want to live in a state of fearlessness, if I want to live in a state of joy, then I find I can't be immoral. Because every immoral act, it clouds my mind, it clouds my heart. And so I have to try to be moral. Now, there are people who don't have any religious belief and who are not spiritual, who have understood that much. And that itself is good. That itself will lead them higher. So I'm not saying that there's anything with the people who are not spiritual or religious, but who are good and moral, that they are in trouble. But society, yes, collectively we are in trouble if that becomes the main state of society, where most people are trying to be moral just because they're trying to be moral. But a person who tries to be moral without a religious foundation, then eventually, if they really become deeply moral, then they will become spiritually sensitive just by that. Because morality is tied to spirituality. If you really become a good person, if you really become a sympathetic person, a person who really feels for others, not just in a sentimental way, but if you really feel for others, then you'll begin to feel a connection to others and to the world. And that itself is the beginnings of spirituality. And so a person who is just moral but not at all religious or spiritual, well, that's okay. They haven't awakened to the need yet. But eventually they will awaken to the need, or if they become moral enough. You see, morality is a spectrum. There's basic morality, which means that you don't do anything bad enough to get arrested by the police. There's a little bit higher than that, meaning that you don't do really bad things, even if they're not illegal. You don't do really bad things and hurt other people. You're not a bully and so forth. Well, that's better. At a higher level where you're really trying to be a good person. You really believe in goodness, and you have an image of yourself as being a good person, and you want to protect that image because it's important to you, not just because you want to get ahead in society, and then it's just a selfish motivation. But if that sense of goodness is important to you internally, and you become a better person, and you try to keep becoming a better person, you try to become more unselfish, then you're on your way to spirituality, whether you go to a temple or don't go to a temple or church. Look at someone like Abraham Lincoln, President Abraham Lincoln. He didn't go to church. He wasn't an outwardly religious man. But if you read his life and the things that he said, and read about the impression that he made on people, he was a deeply spiritual man. He became a deeply spiritual man. He became a deeply spiritual man. And there are many other examples of people like that who weren't church or temple goers, but who became deeply good and who lived for something larger than themselves, as in the case of Abraham Lincoln. He lived for an ideal, and he lived for the country, for the people. He really gave himself to the country. And so that's people who met him in the years before he was killed, that is during the Civil War, when he had really given himself to holding the country together. People who met him felt a presence around him, felt an inspiration around him, felt that there was a silent power, not an aggressive power, not a power over other people, but that there was a presence about him that you feel in the presence of a saint. And so morality is necessary because of that. The spirituality is necessary because of that. Without that, moral and social values don't hold up. There's no foundation for them. None whatsoever. So when we begin to feel the tie between morality and spirituality, then our morality itself is uplifted. Then it's no longer, I just don't like to lie. I'm just a truthful person. I just don't like to lie. I was brought up not to lie. Well, that's good. That's very good. Keep that. But there is a deeper truthfulness. That is a truthfulness that I'm going to be verbally truthful, but I'm going to be true to my convictions. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be true to other people. It becomes more than just a verbal, commitment to verbal truth. And so with everything. You begin with, I just don't like to hurt people. I like people and I don't like to hurt people. Well, that's good. That's good. That's fine. That's much better than wanting to hurt people. But eventually, if that becomes connected to a spiritual value, then it goes much deeper. You want to give yourself to unselfishness, and you see the value of unselfishness, because through unselfishness, I become bigger. Unselfishness doesn't make me disappear. It makes me the container for the whole world. And then I begin to feel my connection to all beings and all being itself. So, second question, Shobha. And then I'll see what other questions are there.
My second question is that traditionally we believe in reincarnation, like you just mentioned. And at what point in time anybody who is aware of these reincarnation becomes mumukshu, or what time does the mumukshutvam sprout? Mumukshutvam means freedom from the cycle of birth and death continuously.
Yes.
So at what point, or what are the turning points that make people want to feel going on higher realm or
yes. So
it's similar to what I was.
Yes, mumukshutva means the desire to be free, the desire for freedom, liberation, and so when does one develop mumukshutva? That is the quality of desiring to be free. What is it that makes one to desire to be free? The simplest answer is what I said at the beginning of an answer to the other, and that is when we see that all of this is not enough. When this is not enough, then we begin to seek something higher, something which is lasting. And so that also is just like morality. This also is a spectrum. It begins just with an interest in spirituality. You maybe read a book or you hear from somebody about higher religion. Again, not just going to the temple and giving some money to the priest to do some puja so that your son gets high marks on the next exam or something like that. No, that's lower religion. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not spirituality. That's bargaining with God. And again, nothing wrong with it. Even Sri Ramakrishna prayed to the Divine Mother, Mother, if you will cure Keshav Chandra Sen, if you cure him, then I will offer you green coconut and sugar candy. So, so even Sri Ramakrishna did that. So I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, but that's not spirituality. That's bargaining. So when you begin to feel even a little bit that this isn't enough, that you find that the ordinary life isn't really satisfying, I still feel empty. Then one begins, oftentimes, if one is lucky, one begins to feel some sort of attraction towards religion, towards higher spirituality. So maybe you read a book, you meet someone, or go to a place or whatever, where you feel that, oh, this person, this book, this place has something that I want. That sounds good. That sounds desirable. And so mumukshutva, the seed of mumukshutva, arises when you feel this is not enough, and you make some contact with the idea of higher spirituality, and you feel attracted, even a little bit. In fact, it's believed, Swami Ashokananda, a great Swami of the order, used to say this, and it's believed wider than that, that even if you casually see a man or a woman of illumination, if you see a great saint, as many people saw Ramakrishna and many others, many great saints, not just at the level of an avatara, which is a special class. But if you casually see a great saint, you don't even recognize them, you don't know who they are, but something about that person leaves an impression on the unconscious mind. Your conscious mind, it may not register, but there's something which is left in the unconscious mind, because the unconscious mind perceives much more than the conscious mind. That's why in hypnosis, a person may not remember things consciously, but through hypnosis, much larger pictures can be called out of hypnosis. And so the unconscious mind perceives much more. So it perceives something unusual in the holy man or holy woman. So if not in this life, then in the next life, that has sown the seed for a spiritual awakening. The seed for a spiritual awakening. So if you're more sensitive and you see a holy person, a genuinely holy person, I'm talking about a great saint, then you may see qualities in that person that you think, I want that. I want that. I want to, this person has something that I haven't seen in other people, and I want to attain it. And so desire for higher spirituality is awakened that way. Or again, you read a book and the ideas inspire you. The idea of spirituality, of meditation and higher experience is inspiring. And so you want to attain to that. So the first answer again is a basic dissatisfaction, at least some recognition that this isn't enough, and then the contact with the possibility of spirituality through a book, through a person, through a place, or just the awakening of the idea within you. And so that in this life or in another life, that will happen to everyone. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that in the game of Parcheesi, you shake the dice and you move your player and you keep moving around the board. Sometimes you're sent back and you go forward. But he says that you can't go home until you've gone all the way around the square. You go through all of the squares and you pass everyone else's home and you come back to your home, and then you can go up the gateway to your to home. That you have to go through all of the squares before you can go home. And so he said that we have to go through many life's experiences in many lifetimes before we come to the point where we feel that, no, I've done everything, I've felt everything, I've experienced everything. It's not enough. It's not enough. I need something else. So if reincarnation is true, if Punarjanma is true, then all of us have been through many, many lifetimes. Lifetimes where we were very rich, lifetimes where we were very poor, lifetimes where we were very powerful, lifetimes where we were oppressed, lifetimes where we were healthy, lifetimes where we were sickly our whole lives, lifetimes where our body was well-formed and strong, lifetimes where we were disabled. We've passed through many, many, all different types of lifetimes. And after that, then the mind begins to feel, even if we don't have memories of that, as we don't, a person sometimes has a recall of a past life or more than one past life. But in general, people don't have a recall of their past lives. But still, the memories are there within us, even if they're asleep. And those collective memories give us the awareness that there's no real happiness here. There's no real lasting happiness. There's always struggle. It's always struggle. It's one problem after another, without end. No end of problem solving. And even if I have wealth, even if I have property, even if I have a beautiful family, and everything, so what? So what? So then the desire for mumukshutva arises. And that's why many times in life, a person turns religious after some tragedy, after some difficult experience in life. Not always. Other people just suddenly they take an interest. But there are people who it's after some tragedy, because suddenly they begin to think, well, what's the meaning of all of this? What's the meaning of all of this? And one last thing, and then I'll ask for another question. That Swami Vivekananda wanted the material condition of India to rise. India at one time had been the wealthiest country in the world, and that's why everyone wanted to come to India. Conquerors and explorers and colonialists, everyone wanted to come to India because of its fabled wealth. But for several centuries, India has been a very, very poor country. And so Swamiji wanted the material condition of India to rise, because unless a person has the possibility of enjoyment, the idea of renunciation can't come. Unless you have the possibility of enjoyment, you can't think of giving up enjoyment. As Swamiji said, the renunciation of a beggar is meaningless. It's just sour grapes. Well, I can't have it anyway, so I'm going to pretend that I don't want it. But actually I do want it, but I just know I can't have it. And no, that won't work. And so that's why in the Hindu tradition, it was never believed that wealth itself is not an evil. Wealth itself is not an evil, that wealth should be attained by moral means and so forth, but in itself is not evil. It's not a virtue either, but it's morally neutral as long as it's attained in a moral way. And that's because we all have to go through various experiences. And so if we have the possibility of enjoyment in life, then we have the chance for realizing that I could have it, but I don't want it. I could have it, but it's not important. I could have it, but I can see all around me that it doesn't satisfy the longing of the heart. So why should I go for that? Let me go for something else. As long as that desire hasn't arisen, then go ahead and do the things that you want to do. There's no harm in that. There's no harm in getting ahead in life as long as you're not pushing other people down at the same time. There's no harm in possession as long as you're not getting it by wicked means. But a time will come when you say, so I've had everything. Now what? Now what? Now I want something else. So another question. Yes, back here. Okay.
Good morning, Swamiji.
Good morning.
I was very impressed in the last talk that you had. You made a statement saying that there's no atheist in the trenches of the battlefield.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jagdish. My profession is healthcare. I see illness doesn't recognize good and bad.
No.
And a person who's been religious and spiritual, okay, can be affected by the same illness as someone who has never realized spirituality or religion, like you say, an atheist, okay, in the trenches, and suddenly realizes there is God, okay, I need to pray to God. Sorry for my ignorance. So could you please give me some insight to what your thoughts are regarding that statement?
Okay, thoughts about that illness, not distinguishing between religious and non-religious, rich and poor, etc. Yes, yes, yes. Well, there are many people, and this is true among Christians in the West, and it's true among Hindus in the East, as well as other religions. There are many people who have the idea that if you're good, if you're religious and so forth, and if you think the right thoughts, you shouldn't get ill. And that's a very strong New Age idea. It's not just in New Age, but it's been promoted much in New Age circles. That religion is largely, or all religion is rooted in wrong thinking. And so if you think the right thoughts, then you won't get sick. That's a very cruel belief. It's not only wrong, but it's also cruel. Not that the people who hold it mean to be cruel, but it turns out to be cruel because, as Jagdish said, illness can strike anyone. Illness can strike anyone. The religious person, the irreligious person, the young, the old, the successful, the non-successful. It's not just rooted in wrong thinking. I don't know how many people have come to me over the years and said, Swami, I try to think all of the right thoughts. I try to think only the right thoughts, and yet I'm not happy. I'm not happy. What am I doing wrong? And that's tied to the idea that if I think the right thoughts, then I'll always be happy. Life will go in the way that I want it to go. Only good things will come to me. I'll always be happy, and I won't get sick if I just think the right thoughts. So the secret, in fact, there's a movie called The Secret, and that is the secret, that if you just think the right thoughts, you'll get wealth, you'll get happiness, everything will come to you. That God just wants to give you prosperity. God wants to give you abundance. And it's only because of your negative thinking that you don't get it. So open up, think the right thoughts, and abundance will come to you. Wealth will come to you. Health will come to you. Long life will come to you. That's what God wants for you. Nonsense. That's pure foolishness. Pure foolishness. There's no truth whatsoever to that. There is truth to the fact that thinking good thoughts, thinking right thoughts, that will make you happier. But not happy in the sense that suddenly a brand new Tesla or whatever car you can think of that's the most desirable car appears, and somebody comes and says, well, I just thought that you might like to have this, so here are the keys, it's yours. And suddenly somebody comes and says, I have this mansion over here, and I want you to live there. You come and you can live there. No, thinking the right thoughts doesn't do that. Thinking the right thoughts makes the mind pure, and the pure mind feels an inner joy. Not the happiness of going to parties and thinking everything's wonderful. Oh, I'm so happy because I'm being entertained and having a good time. No, but the happiness of inner joy comes to you that's not affected by good times and bad times. Not affected by health or sickness. It can come to all of us. Accidents can come to all of us. And so the spiritual person, spiritual person can be judged by the way they respond to the situations that come to them. And it's not these circumstances that make a spiritual person. It's the response to circumstances that shows the spiritual person. You see very spiritual people who had a variety of severe ailments. You see wicked people who enjoy wonderful health. Yes, wicked people sometimes get sick also, and saintly people can enjoy health also, but you see the opposite, where a person who's very saintly, who suffers a great deal. I've known people, some of our monks, who are very, very good, very devoted, who young in their monastic career got severe cancers and so forth, who had other severe ailments. And you see wicked people who live a long, healthy life. And so if just thinking right thoughts were the foundation for health or sickness, then that wouldn't happen. The fact is that good thoughts are good because they make you a good person, not because they make you a healthy person. Certainly there are illnesses which are brought on by stress. There are illnesses, if a person suffers deeply from grief, that can bring on illnesses, etc. There are mental states which weaken the immune system, which bring on negative physical response in the form of a disease or something. But in general, the body follows its own laws and the mind follows its own laws, and the two affect each other, but they don't completely dominate each other. So the Chandogya Upanishad says that if you are ill, let illness be your tapasya, that it be your spiritual practice. What does that mean? That means let illness, patience in the midst of illness, keeping the mind in the right place in spite of illness, to the best of your ability. That's a struggle. I know it is. I know it from the inside that that's a struggle. But doing that, let that be your spiritual practice. So it doesn't say that if you are a tapasvi, if you are a spiritual person, you won't have illness. No, it says that if you do have illness, let that be your tapasya. Let that be your tapasya. That idea, as I said, it's a cruel idea that if you think all the right thoughts, you'll never get sick. That adds on to a person. The person is already sick and feeling bad because they're sick. The physical pain or whatever is there because of the sickness, plus the mental suffering that goes along with it. And then you add on top of that guilt that somehow I did this to myself. It's because I didn't think the right thoughts that now I'm sick. No, don't do that to anybody. Don't do that to anybody. Whatever experiences come to you, meet them with your head up. Meet them face on. Don't run from them because they're going to catch you. Just meet them. And then just do the best you can in the midst of the circumstances. What's that? Oh, samadarshi, yes, samadarshi, yes. To be equanimous, to see everything as with equal eyes, yes, to be a samadarshi. Samadarshitva, the quality of being equanimous in the midst of all circumstances, that we should strive for. And to take the good with the bad, take the bad with the good, and realize that in the midst of all of the ups and downs of life, I have to keep the ship of my mind going straight and not being tossed by the waves. But the ship of my mind has to be steady enough so that the waves of life beating against it don't move it. Don't move it. Like a heavily, fully laden oil tanker that's so heavy and so large that the waves don't affect it. So we have to be like that, like a super tanker, moving through the ocean of life. So now time is up, so I won't ask for more questions now. And I won't ask for questions on the questions. So we'll stop here. So let me give a closing chant, and then I'll give announcements. Om madhuvatartayate madhuksharanti sindhavaha madhvirna santoshadhihi madhunaktamutoshasi madhumatparthivagum rajaha Madhudyarastu nah pita madhumanno vanaspatir madhumagum mastu suryaha madhvirgavo bhavandunaha. Om Madhu, Om Madhu, Om Madhu. For us who seek the truth and for all beings, may the winds blow sweetly. May the rivers flow sweetly. May the herbs yield us sweetness. Sweet be the night and the break of day. Sweet be the very dust of the earth. May the heavens pour down sweetness upon us. May the trees, lords of the forest, bear us sweetness. May the sun shed its sweetness upon us. May all the directions pour forth sweetness. Om, sweetness, sweetness, sweetness. So for announcements, we will have on Tuesday night, 7:30, Tuesday evening, we'll have the Gita class as usual. Everyone is welcome. On Thursday morning, we will have the Kathamrita class, the class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, at 11 o'clock. And on Sunday, I will not be here. There will be a video on Sunday. But I'm going to, on Sunday, I will be in Toronto at the Parliament of the World's Religions. So I won't be here to give the lecture. So we will have a video. And the following Tuesday also, I will not be here. Tuesday, I'm sorry. I will be back on Tuesday. The following Tuesday, November 6th, is Kali Puja. And so I get back on the 6th afternoon and I will be here for the puja. Swami Nirakarananda, the Swami from St. Louis, he will be here to do the puja. He's a very good pujari. He was the head pujari in Mysore ashram for some years, doing big and small pujas, various types. So he will do the puja, 7:30 on Tuesday. So this coming Tuesday, there will be the Gita class. This coming Thursday, there will be the Kathamrita class. Sunday, a video. And on Tuesday, there will be, the next Tuesday, the November 6th, the Kali Puja at 7:30. So everyone is invited to come. So I think I've heard that before. Okay. Somehow that sounds familiar. So I think that's all of the announcements for now. Oh, let me also announce that on the 8th of November, which is a Thursday, after Kali Puja, there's starting on the 6th, Kali Puja.